we got a minute long kind of teaser for How to Train Your Dragon. This is the live action one directed by Dean DeBlois, who did the original. And yeah, you get a very it seems like very well directed, very visually stunning little teaser here. I mean, it is like you said it earlier. I mean, it is impressive. It's not like I'm obviously not like wanting more live action movies that were once animated stories,
right.
But it's interesting to see a different take. It does feel like we're kind of getting a Viking type Game of Thrones feel here, and then basically to sum up the teaser, you get Gerard Butler as Hiccup's dad, and he's like, you got to kill dragons. That's what we do. And he's like, Dad, I can't kill a dragon. and then he goes up to Toothless as Toothless is sleeping, can't kill him, and then later sticks out his hand for Toothless, and Toothless kind of like nudges his head into the hand, and that's how you end the teaser. But all looks really visually stunning, and then Toothless as well is really like a 1-to-1 recreation from the movies, the original movies, just a little more detailed with the actual scales and whatnot. So yeah, I can't say I'm disappointed in anything that they've shown. I'm just not worried. What's the word there? Like
skeptical.
Skeptical. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I share the same viewpoint as Ian with most of the animated content now becoming live action. Like, for fuck's sake, we have Moana, like around this, not too long after Moana 2 is about to come out, we're gonna have a live action Moana.
It's too soon for Moana. Like, we can't be doing this already.
And we've only seen like still images of like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. Stitch looks great.
He does look great.
But like, do we need it? No, we never need anything really. We don't really ever need a sequel. We don't really need a movie to ever come out.
But like, when the original is so perfect, let's just why retread those waters?
Yeah, like nobody's remaking Wizard of Oz. Like nobody's gonna do that. They might do spin-offs of it.
Like no one's remaking like Back to the Future or like The Godfather. Like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, but they're like, well, but it's animated, so we gotta have the live action because
we can do it differently.
People really like. And now, I do think that from this teaser, people did talk about, like, I've not really heard a great argument other than like, well, this way we can pretend that an actual dragon's there. Like, I'm like, yeah, well, sure, I guess. Like, I could pretend that a dragon was there when I saw Toothless in the animated, and people were like, anyways,
yeah,
looks great. Toothless looks amazing. I like the general atmosphere that is being presented. Like, it does kind of have a bit of a darker reality to it.
Definitely.
But besides that, like, yeah, it's definitely
pretty much the same movie at this point. And I think that's like, you could see, yeah, I think,
and like, I want the Hiccup.
Mm-hmm. I think he looks great. Yes, I think the actors, he did a good job in the teaser.
All the three main characters that we've seen so far, great. I mean, honestly, like, really great.
I think, like, what I would applaud them for doing is doing something different, so that there's a real purpose to why, like, we're getting another iteration of the same story. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna say like the live action Mulan was great or even good.
I've not yet seen it, but it was different, and that was one of the things that I was like, oh, I kind of want to see what they did with it.
Right, they did a lot differently with that, and they they were like, well, the original story before the original movie even came out wasn't, it didn't have this talking dragon. It wasn't like specifically made for kids. It was a more adult story, and I think they did that in the live action one.
And just to touch on the made for kids aspect of it all,
right?
Hannah, my girlfriend, has been watching a bunch of old Disney movies, and she has been like
has she ever seen them before, or is this like first time?
She just watched them again.
Okay.
And like she's like, Hunchback of Notre Dame is not a kid's movie.
I haven't seen that since I was a kid. Funny enough.
Well, it's like the villain is a priest who wants to like marry this young girl, and he hates her that she won't marry him, so she's gonna kill him, and he locks this deformed being up into the tower, and that's the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And it's like, yeah, that's a fucked up story.
It's a pretty dark premise. Yeah.
And like Hercules, we were just watching that the other day or yesterday.
I don't know if I've actually ever seen Hercules.
Oh my God. That is a good Disney movie.
Nice.
But it's like, I mean, they do kidify it, I guess, a bit. They do make it for a family, but like, I don't know. It's still like kind of a pretty grown up story, and I would say the same thing for like, well, I don't know what else I would say it for, but what was I gonna say about making it like a kids movie? Or what were you saying, that they're making it darker?
Just that, I'm a fan of like, if you're gonna remake this movie, I'm a fan of like doing things differently and maybe adapting it for more adult storytelling than kids storytelling.
Right, and I hope that they like push it more than what we've seen, which I'm sure we'll find out because it's only like a minute teaser. But yeah, I do think it looks really good. I hope they do what you were talking about. And also we're having like a mini discussion that Ian was kind of saying, well, if you're already trying to make it realistic, why don't you push it one step further and have Toothless look like an actual dragon?
Because he still feels very like a cartoon. Like he's very round and and
the big eyes, like and it's not exactly the type of scales that like if I was to see in real, like I'd be like, oh,
that's pretty flat.
So, but I was saying that I feel like if you went that route, it's the same thing that when you see the dragons on like Game of Thrones, like, yeah, you could develop some amount of emotions towards them, but they're not nearly as expressive as somebody like Toothless. And you run into the same issue that Paramount did when they first had the first reactions for Sonic when he came out, because they tried to make him more realistic, and then they also tried to do the Lion, like Disney with the Lion King. And
I think it's easier though to make like a more realistic looking dragon than like a more realistic looking talking hedgehog. But okay, sure, I get what you mean.
I agree.
Yeah,
but like they wanted the fans were like, no, like get the big eyes, and it works. And also with the lions and the animals and the first Lion King, like there was such a,
like it was too realistic.
It was so realistic that like a lot of people were like found it really hard to relate, and like
because there's no emotion coming from the animals. It's just like voice acting.
In the Mufasa movie that's coming up, they've drastically made steps to make them more.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like if you just from watching like the lion, when like Mufasa's on like the river and he's like floating down the stream, like his eyes get all big and you can like see smiles and stuff. Yeah, it's like it just doesn't. It's like watching one of those old, I forget which movie it is, but like the old movies from like the 90s where the dogs would talk, but it's just a dog.
Well, they just did one recently, like with like Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg. Yeah. So yeah, no, those look terrible. But I think the more reason why they didn't, well, one, yeah, you're right. Like fan backlash, if like it's not exactly Toothless, like the fans are gonna be pissed. But also like you probably do better. Sure, but you also do run into like the problem that like if it's a really realistic dragon, then you're kind of like you run the risk of people saying you're just copying Game of Thrones, because the vibe of that world, I mean, it does feel like it could be in Game of Thrones if they didn't have the Viking hats on, you know, like they could be in the north and just they want to kill dragons. I mean, that's pretty much it. But with the kind of element of Toothless being a much different looking dragon than the ones in Game of Thrones, I think it has its own identity there.
Yeah, but and I could be proven wrong. Like maybe somebody send me a realistic image of Toothless as a realistic dragon, and I'll take back my words. But I don't know how you make a realistic looking Toothless.
I mean, it would be so different than what we see.
And I think you would be like,
yeah,
ooh.
I agree. I agree. It could be jarring as hell. Right. So I think, for the most part, it's a good decision they made in sticking to what they have, because you kind of get your own identity and you appease the fans. So,
and I think this is a theory, but I think in most movies where you have I think this is a truth. Most movies where you have a young boy or your main character encounter in a different being than themselves, and it's kind of that like bond. The outside being that they befriend, for some reason, has to have those trusting features of like the big eyes and and big ears and or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like Iron Giant, big eyes. E.T.,
big smile,
big eyes, big, weird hands. Baby Yoda, big eyes, big ears. Like I think there's just like that sense of this is a friendly being to have like empathy and like want to have friendship with, as opposed to like a dragon, like a lizard, a huge lizard that's just like staring at you with its dead eyes. And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to love it.
Sure. No, I feel you. I think that, it makes sense. I mean, it's going to work better for the story. And I think it's, like I said, it's going to work better for live action too, even though, and maybe it only would have worked for live action if you had never seen it animated. I think that's like the only way that works, is if like Toothless had never been animated and this is like your first look at him. That's when you could do realistic, but otherwise it was never going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it looks really, really good, actually. This is, I don't remember seeing a release date at the end of the trailer, but I think it's coming out next year.
It's like June.
Okay.
Yeah.
But directed by Dean DeBlois, I think. And starring Mason Thames as Hiccup and,
June 13th.
Why am I blanking on
Gerard Butler?
Gerard Butler. Yeah. Gerard Butler coming back for the same role. I think that's pretty cool. So overall, I'm a little excited, I would say.